I'm Fred, and I will be presenting Odoo in the context of breweries. I hope you hear me well, because here with the with the sound test next to it. Should I speak louder? Okay, fine. Um, Before the presentation, just some words about me. So I work as an analyst, as an functional expert. I started a while ago on OpenERP 6. I work now as a freelancer. In my daily activities, I feel inspired by open source communities, OCA for instance, and ethic-driven IT innovations. And I really wanted to have a talk at Odoo Experience this year because I've been working on Odoo for 10 years now, so this is something I really wanted to share with the community. And to do so, I wanted a fancy topic. Well, as I implemented Odoo in a couple of breweries lately, well, I told myself that beers was quite a fancy topic to share with people at Odoo Experience, so that's why I decided to do it. As a freelancer, my favorite task in implementing Odoo to analyze the added value of, that Odoo can bring in a business, figuring out what is the good scope and what are the steps to implement Odoo successfully, and how to help people use Odoo as it is and take the most out of it and not the other way around. That are the key activities I like to do. So in this talk, I will share with you the most valuable features I find in Odoo for breweries or companies active in the food or beverage industry in general. So I have to disappoint you if you expect some full custom tailored things dedicated to that business. My focus here will be more work flows and business oriented. So you won't see any kind of custom things tailored to breweries. It's more about the added value that those businesses can take out of Odoo. So to do so, I decided to show you my top 5 features for breweries. So the most important features that bring value to that kind of businesses. The breweries I worked with were small and medium-sized companies from 5 to 25 people, brewing around the biggest one, I think, brews annually a volume of 15,000 hectoliters, to give you an idea of the kind of companies I take all those advices from. So let's go. With number 5, the quotations. So I will pretty much do the same thing than Fabian yesterday, playing with quotations. Brewers have huge expectations when encoding quotations because they usually start from custom systems in Excel where everything has been tailored to be managed very quickly. And actually, I am quite impressed with the way we can mimic those behaviors with Odoo, even using the standard system. So I'll go to the quotations. So you can look at the watch and compare and count it if you want to. So using the shortcuts, we easily create one. My client here will be Odoo, for Odoo Experience, of course. With the quotation templates, you can fill in all the lines. Sorry. Okay, I should zoom it. Thank you. Okay, I want to see the chatter. Is it better? A bit? But I like to have the chatter aside. I need it afterwards. So I will select a quotation template, a quotation with a preset of lines that are tailored to the kind of clients. For instance, the restaurants will have the most common products for them, and the retail clients will have their specific products. Here we'll be playing with an event. The price list, well, Odoo is could be kind of a very good client, so I will give a nice discount. All right, I will just recompute that. This is actually the only step I need, for which I need my mouse. And then we're ready to go. So we simply put the number of each products that I need, starting with the barrels. Here I'm using sections to correctly classify all the products. So 10 barrels of lager, 15 of IPA. IPA is very popular, and a bit less of white, and that's it. Or maybe, a couple of crates, emergency for the end of the party at 2 a.m. It's never lost. I will put 5 crates, and then I save. All right. So I talk a lot, but if you have to manage lots of quotations daily using the shortcuts and all those little tools given by Odoo to work quickly, those kind of things can work very, very quickly in seconds, if coming from an email or sheets of paper. And looking at that, Odoo make all the computations. If you look at the end, you've got the details with the deposits for all the returnable items. For the crates, the bottles that are returnable, you want to compute an amount and give it to the client. And those kind of things can directly be computed with the system. We saw it at the bottom. It will print out in the PDF and in the customer portal. All right, so that's not it. The quotation is easy to fill, but it's also completely interconnected with the stock management. And having the stock in mind is very important to correctly deal with the client and tell them whether or not they can be fulfilled. For instance, I will see on the wildflower barrel that the dates requested by the customers to be delivered doesn't match the stock available for the wildflower. And if I want the detail and see when this product will be available, well, I will click this little icon for the forecast and see that actually for now I have no production scheduled. So and typically brewers, they use quotations. They do quotations in an Excel sheet. They have other sheets with their stock, other sheets with the forecast, and gathering all those data is very troublesome. Thanks to this embedded tools in the quotation, it's way, way easier. Okay, so that's the first cool thing that I wanted to share, that usually the quotations are something people starting with Odoo are afraid of, because they are afraid of the lack of flexibility of the system, but I can definitely tell you that brewers love the quotations interface of Odoo. So that was number 5. Number 4, the replenishment. Before dealing with the replenishment, we can quickly look at the sales analysis. Brewers, they used to work and do the math in volume. So they will not talk about number of crates or number of barrels. No, they will just compute the volumes in hectoliter that they need to produce and deliver to the clients. And this is something Odoo Standard provides using the sales reporting. For instance, I will go to the pivot view and quickly look at the figures of the past quarter in order to schedule and to make the forecast for the next periods. I will look at the last quarters like this. And looking at the measures, I will simply look at the volume. So the volume is a combined unit of measure that I have for all my products, whether they are sold in bottles, in crates, or in barrels. So I will look at the first quarter of 22 and look at the product references. Here they are, IPA, lager, and the white flour. And yeah, clicking those figures gives me the detail with all the sales lines. And so I can compare from one period to another, playing with the filters more extensively. I can also see the percentage, the evolutions from one period to another. So that will be my input for my replenishment. To replenish, I have two tools given by Odoo, the one in inventory, to manage the demand that comes up front in the very next days, the very next weeks. In the case of breweries or food manufacturers, it's better to have a view in the distance and see what are the needs of raw materials in the next months or next quarters. And to do so, I definitely recommend to use the MPS in the manufacturing module. At first, that kind of tool can appear to be reluctant and complex for the new users, but you can definitely tell me that after a bit of coaching, in 1 or 2 weeks of usage, new users, Odoo noob can definitely feel comfortable with that kind of tool, because the number of data you have to put in is quite reduced. So here I will simply put the forecast that I have for the first quarter of next year. I'll do it for the lager first. So my company is doing good, so I will increase the figures a bit. 60 hectoliters for the lager. For the white one, a bit less, 40. And for the IPA, I'll say 45. And this tool, so once the forecast in, this tool computes the needs of raw materials and taking the lead times into account. So if you need 2 months to replenish the wheat or the malt, for instance, it will take this into account and suggest the replenishment whenever it's needed, at the beginning of the period when the products are needed. And all those needs are converted into manufacturing orders or into purchase orders, clicking the replenish button. And you see when highlighting the button, you see the red, the gray cells showing up with all the quantities that will be converted into replenishment document. And we can, for instance, dive into one example. If I look at the white beer, the biggest ingredient for the white beer is the wheat. So we've got the detail. So you see that for the forecast, actually put it wrong, it was for January, let's say 50. Yeah, and doing so, you see the indirect demand, I can zoom a bit, for the wheat that is automatically computed with a need to launch. Okay, I will first deal with the replenishment for October, and then I will go to the next period. So this is the kind of view we use on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. We just adjust the quantities in the forecast, and Odoo does the rest. There are a couple of missing things in the previous version, like the ability to merge purchase orders or manufacturing orders that are brought with Odoo 16. That's a very good news. That was to manage it. And there are a couple of good things using that. So the system will take the purchase unit of measure of the products into account. So if you buy your products in bulk with big containers, well, the system will know it. The request of quotations will take those quantities. So if I look at this replenishment, so the system computes a need in kilograms, but it converts it in a bulk of bags of 50 kilos, for instance. And those data show up in the MPS so that I can keep the forecast up to date based on those automated data that Odoo provides. So that was number 4. Number 3, the shop floor, so the work orders. So usually when people start using manufacturing, they focus on the manufacturing order, where you do have all your, the components showing up with the quantities to produce and the availability. And they start using and counting their stock like this. My advice is to actually directly turn to the work orders. The work orders are actually visible in the second screen, where we define operations. So here I was quite specific in my operations. I put a lot of operations that we can see in my overview. Those are basically all the machines I use in the process of brewing beers, brewing and bottling. Of course, you are not obliged to have so many steps in the process, but that helps you manage the schedule of those machines. If you have several brewings to manage at the same time, it's definitely more convenient to have a schedule of all the machines so that you can fulfill the production on time. So let's start a very quick brewing class, okay, in 2 or 3 minutes. So it all starts with the mill. So the steps I see here are the ones generated from my manufacturing orders with all the brewings. I'll do it for the lager. And here is the shop floor interface, the one dedicated to the operators that will use the materials and put them in the tons or in the machines. So the first step is using the mill. We put all the grains into it. So I've got my brewing number, so the one I will declare to the authorities when starting the production. And I have all my ingredients with the first expiring lots. So Odoo is very good in the traceability in a way that it gives you the very next lots that expire in your stock for all your ingredients. So you simply rely on it. You see the lot number that you can scan in a prior step of the process when you pick all the materials in your stock. And you've got a reminder here with the right lot to use. Of course, you can use the barcode scanner to compare and make sure that the pack that you take fits the lot numbers given by the system. Of course, the system is flexible, so if you consume less or more, it will record it. So I will use a bit less because my stock is less than expected, and I can validate. Well, no, I will not consume the 45 remaining quantities. I don't have it. I validate. All right. Then I turn to the next ingredient, so the second malt that I put in the mill as well. The quantities are good. Okay, I check on my balance and I can validate. You see there is also a counter. So there are some operations that are very important to brewers in order to control the quality of the machines. For instance, the heating, the time needed to heat the mash that we'll see in the next step definitely matters to analyze the efficiency of the process. So the counter that starts here is very important. I'll validate. That's it. So the milling is done, so we can go to the next step. So we switch from one machine to another, and here it is. It's the first ton that we're gonna use. So it's not about consuming new ingredients, but taking measures. Here, the acidity. So I'll measure the pH, 5.1, for instance, and I will record it. Okay, so here the system analyzes the results and gives me advice to correct the value because it's actually too low. So I should add some lactic acid. So I will double check and confirm the measure. Then I will have the flexibility to add new components to use for my stock. Lactic acid. Okay, the product don't exist yet, but I will consume it so that it's in my records. That's good. I continue. I put the water, of course. All right. At the end, I've got the summary, and all my failures in my results are displayed in red. Okay. So at the end, from my master manufacturing order, I will have an access in one click to all those results, and I can mark as done. Okay, and then we move on. We've got the loitering. We take a new acidity measure for 5.6, and now we're good, and we can go to the next step, etc., etc. The cool thing about this is that all the results you record from the user interface can be edited in case of mistake and can be analyzed and used for the brewing declaration or the excise declaration that we have to perform when the brewing goes to the stock. So in the quality module, we've got a pivot table with the quality checks with all the measures. So we've got the different control points that we can analyze by manufacturing orders. The manufacturing orders are all my brewings. Okay. Number 2, of course, the traceability. And that's going to be very quick. Let's say one of your vendors tells you, okay, my ingredient was actually perished. Sorry if you have already used it, but there is an issue with that lot number. So let's go. Usually it takes hours to brewers figure out how to deal with that. They have lots of folders with all the lots used in the brewings, and it takes really a long time to find all the finished goods produced from those ingredients. So I'll let you guess how many clicks I need to do in Odoo to figure this out. Do you have an idea? So from one raw material to the very end products delivered to the client, how many clicks? Okay, let's see. So I'll take the example of the hop. So this is the raw material, and those are my clients directly in one click. So that's one of the improvements we had in version 15, I think. It directly takes you to the very end of the process. And of course, in between, you've got a full traceability. So you've got the lot numbers of your brewing, and you can dig in and see the relation with all the other materials. That's very cool. And the winner is now, remaining one, the costing. Something people are a bit afraid of when they start with the solution, but it actually very simple. At least we can start very simply with very powerful results. In Odoo, you've got the ability to compute the cost of your semi-finished and finished goods with the real cost, the cost of the very products and the very operations used during the process. And this is actually what you can do thanks to the work orders and the shop floor interface with the steps that you go through. So something very critical in the crisis time is to manage your sales price and your margins. With Odoo, there is very simple tools that help you do that. So as many other companies, my brewery is facing increasing energy costs. And so one day, in my vendor bill, something very unpleasant happens. An invoice that I would prefer to keep in my mailbox. Here it is. All right. My energy adjustment with a huge amount that I have to record in my books. As you can see, the OCR of Odoo works pretty well because all the lines, if I unzoom a bit, yeah, all the lines are directly copied by the system into the lines, and I will confirm. Well, first, I'll go to my documents. Using the spreadsheet, I'm using the analytic accounting or my general ledger to split all my overhead costs into my work centers, the work centers used in production. And as you can see, my budget was estimated quite low. The current value is quite low, and now if I validate here the bill, and I refresh, okay, I've got new hourly costs that I can use in my production. So that's the last thing I will show. So on my work centers, so that was a custom spreadsheet that I created in the system, and I can use the data to update my work centers. I will do it on the fermentation vessel, just putting the new cost per hour given by my spreadsheet, put 20, and then I go to my to my products, my brewing, yes, and in one click, yeah, well, actually I'm a very good manager because I managed to decrease my my production price with at the same time. I'm a very good manager. But you understood the principle. You update the data from embedded spreadsheets, and then it gives you new costs that are taken into account in the margins you've got in the sales order. So we are running out of time, so I will not show that. But just to show that the costing is something that we would try to avoid implementation, but it definitely brings added value to that kind of businesses facing increasing cost, along with FIFO and FIFO strategies. Okay, so I had a couple of steps to advise you implement Odoo in such businesses. Well, if you're interested into it, you can come to me and I will discuss that with great pleasure. There are some tools in so what I've shown today is just the standard, and I wanted to share what the good things that we can use in standard to help that kind of businesses. But you have to know that the community of Odoo has a couple of tools that help such brewers do some reportings more quickly. There is, for instance, this nice brewing package done by KPIs to manage the brewing declaration, the consumption reports. There is a link if you want to look into that. The good thing is that package will be soon ported to version 16, so that you can use it with the other tools I just showed. Here is an example of excise declaration. My conclusion, so it's to focus on what really takes time rather than the little things, the little specificities that make your business different. That would be my conclusion for today. Thank you.